Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Has everyone had a good day? Well, the best is yet to come. I'm Alice Cornish, and I'm Head of Education at the Varkey Foundation. And we are here today for a very special moment, for the launch of a new book, Teaching in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Standing at the Precipice. Who's got their copies already? Hey! So this book has been described as essential reading for all educators by Dennis Shirley. Irina Bokova called it a must-read for educators, practitioners, decision-makers, and anyone connected and concerned with the future of education today. None other than Klaus Schwab, the godfather of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, has even come out to write a foreword for this book. And the most special thing, the thing that really makes it stand out, is that it's the first in its kind to bring together the insights of 6 of the world's best teachers, finalists from the Global Teacher Prize. So these teachers have been recognized through the prize for their talent and expertise, and have now turned their talents to penmanship. And in order to solve some of the biggest questions facing education today, they've come together and they've written a book in breakneck speed, actually. So I'm particularly pleased and excited to be here today, as I've had the pleasure of getting to know this group over the last year, working with them, and hopefully now we can call each other colleagues and friends. So I'm very, very pleased to be here celebrating with you today. So without further ado, I'm very delighted to introduce to you Armand Doucet from Canada, Jelmer Evers, that's right, Jelmer Evers from the Netherlands, Nadia Lopez from the US, Cohen Timmers from Belgium, who you might have heard about this weekend, Elisa Guerra from Mexico, and Mike Soskell from Pennsylvania in the US. So Armand, not that long ago, you called me up out of the blue and said, I've got this crazy idea to bring together teachers to change the world. What inspired you to create this book?
First off, it'd probably be Sunny Varkey, Mr. Chairman. Without him bringing everybody here together, I don't get the opportunity to meet everyone else, and don't get the opportunity to be able to network with my peers to create something like this. So I think first off, he showcased how to go about it and modeled it. That would be number one. Number two would be, I'm going to bring you to a year and a half ago in April, and my baby daughter was born. At the same time, my mother-in-law was dying. And my mother-in-law was on the 7th floor. My baby daughter, when she was born, was on the 5th. Born, we rush up and we go directly to oncology to make sure that my mother-in-law sees the baby, because we don't know how much time she's got left. And at that point, I'm thinking to myself, how can I make sure that she has the same type of life as my mother-in-law? Fast forward to last year at the Global Teacher Prize, get a chance to meet all these people, but I'm also being pushed intellectually. Thomas Friedman's talking about 2007, how exponentially it's driving, AI, Fourth Industrial Revolution, and I'm seeing all of this and I'm thinking to myself, what's going on for my daughters? So I get home and I start reading. I do what any other teacher would do. I try to learn as much as I can and start reading a lot, and I'm a bit scared. So that's when I call you up and say, I think I got something that I want to talk about. Klaus Schwab's had a call to arms, basically, that everybody should do their part. And that part for us was to be at the forefront of this education renaissance and make sure that teachers have a voice and that we collaborate with all sectors, that it's not driven by other sectors, it should be driven by professionals that are teachers. So that's where I reached out to the rest of them and we created the book.
And you touched upon technology there. I think people think of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and they often focus on the technology side. I mean, you know, at the Global Education and Skills Forum this weekend, we're seeing huge amounts of innovation all around us. And Cohen Timmers, one of our top 10 finalists for the Global Teacher Prize this year, that's really what put you there in the spotlight. And you know, your creative, innovative use of technology in teaching is why you're being celebrated this weekend. Can you say a little bit more about, what advice would you give to teachers who are navigating all these changes and, how to use technology the most effectively in their classrooms?
Yeah. So augmented reality, VR, artificial intelligence, and robots, I think that new technology comes with benefits, drawbacks, and unexpected side effects. And technology may enhance learning, but requires a good pedagogy, a strong vision, and skills. And as we mentioned in our book, technology is a pedagogical catalyst. It can make good classroom practices great, but also bad classroom practices even worse. So how to get started? Rather than start using a tool and then trying to connect with the curriculum, teachers should start matching the right pedagogy to content and then trying to find the appropriate tool. And then teachers should evaluate whether the technology is only enhancing learning or even transforms learning. That's what we want, basically. Because, for example, teachers can start using iPads as an equivalent of textbooks, but what really transforms learning is like teachers start using Skype to connect students from around the world and discuss climate action, etc. And in the book, I highlight some approaches and applications which work for me, but we do so much more. We showcase applications and best practices for our teachers, ambassadors from around the world. And about the future of technology, will robots be able to instruct our students? I guess they probably already can. And will artificial intelligence be able to solve our students' questions? Probably yes. But will AI and robots be able to bring passion and empathy into our classrooms? I don't think so.
So thank you, Cohen. And I think, Armand, you mentioned Mr. Varkey at the beginning. I know that one thing that you as authors wanted to do is have the opportunity to present your findings to Mr. Varkey. I think, without Mr. Varkey, this book really wouldn't have been possible. And it's his vision to connect educators and to shine a spotlight on teachers, and his belief that teachers matter, that teachers should be heard, that make this powerful book possible. So I'm going to steal 5 minutes, if that's okay, of the proceedings, because I know that you would love the opportunity, and I believe that Mr. Varkey is here with us today, and that the authors would love to present Mr. Varkey with a signed copy with some personal messages of the book.
Yep. Which one is it?
Thank you, Mr. Berkey.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks so
very
much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Cohen, you've shared a little bit about the technology side. Something I'd like to touch on is actually more the sort of human side of this story. So we heard from 3 extraordinary students this morning on the plenary stage about their experiences in Parkland, Florida. And we're seeing an epidemic of violence across schools in the US, and that's really changing the culture that students and teachers are living in. I just wondered, Mike, whether you would say a little bit more about how that's changing for teachers, and how the role of teachers in the context of mental health, of increased violence, how that will play out in the 4th Industrial Revolution.
Well, that's a big problem to talk about in 2 minutes. So I'm going to take this approach, and I'm going to say that the most important things that happen in schools are not easily measured. They are based in compassion and love and respect for each other and relationships. And that's what good teachers do so well. And as technology explodes, that's what the focus of teaching needs to remain. That's what the focus needs to be on in schools. And we talk in the first chapter about the need to make sure that our schools are relevant with the technology that is outside of them, while at the same time keeping education rooted in empathy and compassion. And by looking at data, we can see what some of the problems in education are. but we can't see why those problems are occurring. The only way that we can do that is to get to know our students. And if we allow teachers the opportunity to be empowered and to have autonomy and agency in their classrooms, they can create the kind of empowered students that we saw this morning. And so I think that really should be the focus of what we do in schools.
And, you know, the teacher voice, as I was sort of saying around the changing role of the teacher, the increased pressures on teachers. Jelme, you've worked a lot with teachers all around the world through your work with Education International and with numerous teaching unions. How do you think that role of the kind of the unionized teacher, you know, the teachers union will change?
Well, I came in from a little bit of a different approach. I'm a historian, and so Simon Schama's work and speech really resonated with me. So where does it all come from? You need to take a long-term perspective. So these kind of, the technology will revolutionize education has been going on for 100 years already, or 200 years. So teaching machine is quite an old concept. And at the same time, the last 40 years, or at least 30 years, we've also experienced lots of sort of like top-down managerial standardized testing, increased class sizes. It's been a really bad working condition. It's a global phenomenon. It's actually getting worse in some places. And the only ones I see really pushing back are teacher unions. And the thing is, and that's also like, that's happening right now globally as well, in the teacher union movement as well, is that they're focusing on both professional issues and industrial. Some of them are only focusing on working conditions, but they're now also focusing on, so what do we teach, how do we teach? Because that's what gets teachers energized. And if we don't start organizing, if we don't start working collectively and creating a collective democratic voice on this, then we'll always be one step behind. And technology can accelerate things, but it can accelerate things in the wrong direction. So what we experienced the last 20, 30 years can be accelerated, sort of like germ 2.0, so to speak. Or we can create the conditions where we actually start to create those working conditions, schools, networked schools, smaller class sizes, but also networking our students, etc. Creating the professional development that we need, creating the networks that we need. And I think if you're just your individual teacher, then we don't model for our students what's actually needed to change the world. And those Parkland students are a good example. They're organizing, and they're building coalitions, and I think they're trying to change laws. So that's also what's needed in the fourth industrial revolution. We've seen what happens in the 19th century. What happens when you don't do that, and all the social and political movements that we have came out of these technological, social, and political changes. So people were actually standing up and doing what's right. So public education came out of that as well. So for me, touching upon it in the last chapter, just seeing what kind of narratives were there, what the role of teachers could be, and also that we, like a message to our colleagues, start organizing and do it collectively. Don't do it on your own. Don't be your own individual voice because you'll be your own little island, and you will be swept away on the sort of like the sort of tsunami that's heading towards us. And I think what we touched upon, that we're heading towards some quite, or we're already in there, an era where like regional or global conflicts is become more and more likely. So there's a necessity to it. And if we want to create climate change, then you also need to have people involved, politically active. And unions and professional associations are a conduit to achieve these things. If we don't do that, we're going to go in the wrong direction. I'm completely positive of that.
And we've got lots of teachers in the room who I'm sure are sort of hearing your message and agreeing. So. I mean, at the Varkey Foundation, our focus is on teachers, but we often, I think, sort of forget about the parent role as well. And, you know, particularly thinking about student activism, the students that we saw this morning, I mean, there are such important sort of strength that comes from their parents and their support as well. A parent is, you know, the child's first teacher. Elisa, could you say a little bit more about how you think the parent role will play out in this new world, and, you know, the interaction with parents and schools and education?
Well, wow. Parents' role in the fourth industrial revolution is crucial. as it has always been since the beginning of time. Because as you said, Alice, parents are the first and most influential teachers of their own children. They are the ones responsible for creating, when their babies are tiny, for creating these environments that are rich and stimulating to create brain development and emotional growth. We learn to be human. We learn to love when we are very young and at home. One prominent researcher we interviewed for our book, Eduardo Andere, puts it this way. He says that the power of culture at home is greater than the power of pedagogy at school. So parents are that powerful. And I mean, it's no surprise. Parents are moved by passion and love. There's my passion. There's my inspiration. I have my 3 kids here in the front row. They are the reason I became a teacher in the first place. So Barkey Foundation just launched a parent opinion report. And you can find there that parents, they are not worried a bit about their children's ability to keep up with the pace of technology. And they actually believe that schools are doing a pretty good job in preparing their children for 2030, right? This is consistent with the findings in our book. All through our book, we say that technology will never replace teachers. Parents believe that teachers are more important than technology. They will devote funds. If they have additional funds in their schools, they would like to see those funds devoted to teachers more than technology. And that's part of the report that Barkey Foundation just launched. And this is enlightening because parents know the value of teachers. And if teachers cannot be replaced by technology, that's even truer for parents. Parents could never be replaced by technology either. Because a child needs the artistic touch of human connection to develop his or her fullest potential.
Absolutely, and we've talked about teachers now, we've talked about parents, talked about technology. I think it would be remiss also to forget about a very important part of all of this, which is of course the school leader. And Nadia, sitting with us today, is a renowned and celebrated school leader from New York. So tell us about that perspective and how, having heard all of this, having heard all of these changes, all of these perspectives, what should the role of school leadership be?
So first and foremost, I want to say our schools have to be reflective of the world that we're preparing our children for. Point blank, period. And as a leader, we have to be audacious in how we lead. We have to know what we're preparing our children for, be innovative, adaptive to change, but also disruptive to the mediocrity, and oftentimes being able to say that we're going to create the spaces that we don't see. So that requires myself as a leader and my colleagues to develop relationships, partnerships with the corporations, partnerships with politicians. We need to have conversations about what are we doing to prepare these children for the fourth industrial revolution. It is unfortunate that society is moving at an exponential rate because of technologies, but our schools are lagging behind. That is a community issue. That is a global issue. And all of us in here have a social responsibility, not for those children who are in Africa, not for those children who are in India and Mexico and the US, but what are we doing for our children? It is unfair that children are not attending school. It is unfair that children are not being prepared. It is unfair that the very individuals who are the teachers do not have voices. So my responsibility as a leader is to know what it looks like to be compassionate, is to know what it looks like to create personalized learning and develop an opportunity to invest. We need to invest in our schools. And when we invest in our teachers, we are investing in our children and we are investing in our future. Bottom line.
So, quite right. So, Armand, it's been a pretty busy year, but I have got to know you over the last year, and I know that there will be no sign of stopping for this group of teachers. So what's next?
If you look at the conclusion of the book, there's a few things that we want to get out there and we want to make sure is happening within the tomorrow. The first one is we need mission and vision to align in education. So right now it's based on standardized testing in a lot of places, which is not what the mission and vision of the curriculum is for any education system around the world. I listened to Senator Esteban Bullrich, who's here, I think, over there on the far left. I listened to you 3 years ago. You sat out of the plenary and you said, I gave my cell phone number to every teacher to make sure that I can empower each of them to solve anything that they had in their classrooms. That was bold, it was brave, and that's the type of leadership that we need. That's number one. Number two is teachers absolutely need to be empowered to be professionals, which means that we need teacher standards out there, and we need to keep those teacher standards. We cannot rip those down. Teachers are professionals. They're really good professionals. They go 6 to 7 years of school to make sure that they are great professionals. We need to make sure that that standard stays there, and because of that, we need to work in partnerships with government. We need to work in partnerships with all the different silos that are out there, working together to bring that into the classroom, to create that community, to then move education forward in this renaissance. I think that's the key for us at the moment.
And there's, please. I think you can start to get a sense of the wealth of insights and expertise on this stage right now. We have about 5 minutes or so I would like to invite the audience, if there are questions, we could take sort of one or two. I see one here. Eartha?
Thank you. Good afternoon, guys. I have a question. So often the government is the one who leads the pathway in regards to education. And as a result, we tend to see that they put people over profit. So my kind of advice, or I'd like to get some advice from you, is regards to how do we ensure that holistically our kids are prepared in order for them to attain academically. So what advice would you give in order for us to make sure that holistically we are secure with our students, that they are the best version of themselves in order to attain academically?
No government will ever know their students, know my students as well as I do. Never, never. And so it is absurd to think that anyone outside of the teacher in a classroom should be in charge of the education in that classroom. And that is exactly why we need to empower teachers, and there needs to be a level of trust from those above us, from school leadership, from those in our local geographical areas to our national governments. We need to trust that teachers are going to do what they do best and be compassionate and understand each individual child. Within that, there certainly needs to be a curriculum, there needs to be standards, but we need to empower teachers to be able to carry that out in the best way possible for their kids.
Any other questions for the authors?
Can I just add to that, Alice? So one of the things that I would say when I was a teacher was I owned my classroom. At the end of the day, policies are made by individuals who never step foot in a classroom and never ask the crucial questions. What do you need in order to make kids successful? So every school leader is really the politician that makes the community buy in. The community includes every stakeholder, the children, the teachers, the parents. And it's very important that our leaders understand what their responsibility will be. So holistically, as a teacher, know your children, build relationships, understand the communities that you're serving so that you can best meet their needs, because children want to feel safe. They want to feel like they're listened to, and they want to know that they're included in the planning of whatever they're going to be learning. So we have to make sure that that continues to live out in our entire school community in order for everyone to be successful on every level.
Yeah, so I completely agree with Armand that you need to have clear, really high standards for or else you're not a profession by definition. So we need that, and that immediately also leads to academic achievements. of teachers, as long as the right conditions are there. And I think we as a profession and also as teachers need to be more aware of our role outside of the classroom, so that we need to build those networks ourselves. So what you can see right now happening is sort of like a grassroots revolution. Teachers are on Facebook, on Twitter, they're everywhere and creating their own professional development, talking to one another. I'm connected to teachers in almost every continent on a daily basis. So that's a really powerful voice that's sort of like slowly emerging. And I think systems should allow these networks to evolve as well and support those networks. So right now, professional development, for example, is really top-down organized, and you can't leave the school, for example. So it's all those really simple, these are quite simple interventions, I think, that allow teachers to be the models that you want students to behave like this. Those are the change agents. And if you don't allow teachers to be those change agents, it's never going to happen. It's always going to be sort of like a paper reality and a paper curriculum.
So policymakers, I think, listening to teachers, that's a key part of what we believe at the Varkey Foundation and what we have tried to create through the Varkey Teacher Ambassador Network. And so it's absolutely incredible to have policymakers in the room today taking this seriously and actually sort of volunteering their very scarce resource of time to come and listen to teachers speak. I wonder if I might be a little bit cheeky and just sort of call out one policymaker in the room, Vice President of the Dominican Republic, Margarita Cedeño. You're very, very welcome, Madam, and we would love to present you with a copy of the book as well. The authors have signed one for you. If you'd like to come out.
You do.
It's really important and really touching to have someone of the Vice President's stature coming to join us today. So I think that pretty much leaves me to say how you get the book. So for those of you in the room who haven't already got their copy, I'm very pleased to say that you all as delegates have access to a free copy of the book through the app. So if you open up your app now, I can see you get out your phones. If you open the icon that says research papers and something beginning with C that I couldn't see, it's a mystery. If you open up that, you can actually scroll down to Teaching in the Fourth Industrial Revolution and you can request a free access code. And the publishers, Routledge, have generously organized copies for all of the delegates, given the importance of this piece of work to the work of the forum. Of course, if you'd like a hard copy, like these beautiful, beautiful things here, they're also available on Amazon. So I think that leaves it there just to say an enormous thank you and congratulations to this incredible group of teachers who've achieved so much in such a short space of time, but really drawing on their years of experience. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you, Alice.